Class, and welcome to lesson 2.6b, properties of triangles and quadrilaterals continued. So today, folks, we are adding on to last day's lesson, and we're just going to do some warm-ups first. By this time, folks, hopefully you're able to take a formula, sub it in, and be able to analyze what your results look like. Please be advised that I will need you to know these formulas. I will not be providing them for you on your unit test. Okay, so you need to know, for example, the length, the slope, the midpoint, the equation of the circle, which will be coming, and the equation of the slope and point form equation. All right, so with that said, let's do some warm-ups here. Number one, determine the equation of the line for A, whose slope equals 5, so that means M equals 5, and passes through point 2, 3. So that tells me P equals 2 and Q equals 3. So let's sub that into our equation. So we know Y equals 5, bracket X minus 2, plus 3. We're going to use distributive law, so we're going to have y equals 5x minus 10 plus 3, and collect like terms for your final answer. Y equals 5x minus 7. Okay, very good. Okay, next part, B. Determine the equation line of a perpendicular bisector of the line whose endpoints are Q and R. So we got to do a couple things for perpendicular bisector. First of all, remember perpendicular means we got to get the slope of QR and then find M perpendicular. And bisector means we need to find the midpoint. So let's work on this. I'm just going to have to write it a little small, so hopefully you can still read it. So slope of QR equals 9, subtract a negative 3, which makes it a positive. Divided by 5, again, subtract a negative becomes a positive. So that becomes 12 over 6, and that will equal 2. So that's the slope. But to get the slope perpendicular, ladies and gentlemen, we need to flip the fraction. So currently that's a 2 over 1. So flip it, it becomes 1 over 2, and change the sign. So it's now negative. I'm just going to fix that up so it looks like negative 1 over 2. Try that again. There we go. All right, so now we've got the perpendicular part done. Now we need to work on the bisector. To do the bisector, we need to do our midpoint. Okay, and our midpoint is QR, capital M. Okay, subbing in our points, it should be negative 1 plus 5 divided by 2, comma, negative 3 plus 9 divided by 2, and that simplifies down to 2 and 3. So now we're going to use that information and sub it into the equation. The same one we used in A. So it's going to be y equals my slope, which is negative 1/2, bracket x minus 2 plus 3. I'm just going to move it over here, guys, where I've got a little bit more room. Do distributive law, so it's going to be y equals negative 1/2 x plus, be careful here, plus 1, and then plus 3. And finally, collecting like terms, slope equals negative 1/2, and our y-intercept equals 4. So there's your equation there, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Number 2, points B, C, and D are vertices of a triangle. Use formulas, not graphing, to classify this triangle. Okay, so first of all, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to need to, in order to classify, you're going to need to check the side lengths. Okay, so I assume by now you can take a formula, plug it in, and get an answer. So BC equals 3 plus 4 squared plus negative 1, minus 2. There shouldn't be a comma there. Let me fix that up. Minus 2 squared. Okay, plug that in your calculator, and you're going to get root 58. And I've talked about leaving in the square root because it's exact. I don't need to take the square root to find the actual length because we're just being able to classify it. If it said to determine the length of BC, then you would take the square root. But if we're using the length values to compare to see if it's scalene or isosceles or right triangle, or equilateral triangle, then just leave them in square root where they're exact and they're not rounded, so you don't have a rounding error. Okay, so the next one we'll take a look at is CD. Okay, so we've got -2 minus 3 squared plus -3 plus 1 squared. Plug in your calculator and do the work, and you should get root 29. Please, if you need to, pause the video and do these calculations with me. Okay, and the last one we're going to do is BD. Okay, so that's going to be -2 plus 4 squared plus -3 minus 2 squared. That's going to equal root 29. So what do we notice here? Now I expect you to do the calculation, but now I expect you to actually analyze your results. So what do we notice here about CD and BD? I would say since CD equals BD, but does not equal BC, okay, therefore we have an isosceles triangle. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, you could just say, since I've got two side lengths that are the same, we have an isosceles triangle. All right, awesome. Last warm-up question. Does point G23 lie on the line y equals 4x plus 5? So if it lies on the line, it'll satisfy the equation, which means the left side equals the right side. So make sure here you know to perform a left side, right side check. Okay, and for those, some of you will be familiar with this, some of you might be new, so let's take a look. Left side and right side. How I base that, ladies and gentlemen, is based on the equal sign. So on the left side of that equal sign, I have a y. On the right side of the equal sign, I have a 4x plus 5. Then what I do, ladies and gentlemen, is I sub in my values for x and for y. So y equals 13 on the left side, and on the right side, we've got x equals 2. So we've got 8 plus 5, which equals 13. And here's your proper communication, ladies and gentlemen. Since, which is an upside down therefore, left side equals right side. Therefore, point G is on the line. And just on a side note, folks, if the left side did not equal the right side, then you would say left side does not equal right side. See how I threw a slash through there? And it does not lie on the line. Okay? All right. Let's get into today's lesson. All right. So some people have talked to me before and said, hey, these formulas are kind of confusing me. I'm not sure when to use which one. So here is a great organization, folks, of what formulas or what you need to know for your unit test. So I would write down here on the top of this, study for test. All right, and it says, what formulas do we need when examining quadrilaterals? So if we're looking at parallel lines, what type of geometric calculation would you be looking at? And you'd have to calculate the slopes, because parallel lines are defined by having equal slope. Okay, and the formula used for that is going to be MAB equals y2 subtract y1 over x2 subtract x1. Please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you're used to using these subscripts here, because as you'll see, even in today's lesson, we're going to be calculating 4 different slopes. So we're going to make sure we've got our proper labels on so we can know which length, or sorry, which slope for which side. Okay? Next one. Sorry, guys. Next one is equal sides. So if we're trying to narrow down our classification of a quadrilateral, we want to make sure that the opposite sides are equal in what? In length, right? So that's the length formula. Okay, and length formula always starts with the 2 capital letters that signify the endpoints, equaling the square root of the change in the run squared plus the change in the rise squared. Okay. Next, how do we test if we've got a right angle? Well, remember, a right angle is where the 2 lines meet at 90 degrees. So that's a perpendicular. So you're looking for slope perpendicular. Okay, and what do we have to remember for our step or our formula? Well, it's not really a formula. It's what we have to do is called negative reciprocals or negative reciprocal slopes. Okay. And the last wording that might not be so familiar with you, it's called equidistance. Another word for equidistance is halfway point, or what you probably hopefully know as midpoint. I like to put midpoint with a capital M because it helps you to remember the midpoint of AB equals the 2x pairs added and divided by 2 and the 2y coordinates added together and divided by 2. Remember, midpoint, folks, is an ordered pair, so you need to have your commas and your brackets. All right, so hopefully you have your calculators handy, folks, because today's lesson is going to be based on doing two different things. We're going to be given 4 ordered pairs that are vertices of a quadrilateral JKLN, and we have 2 questions we want to do. A, use mathematical formulas to classify this quadrilateral, and it says without graphing. Okay, so we have to use our mathematical skills that we've been developing this unit in order to define what type of quadrilateral it is. And then the second question is B. We're going to calculate the midpoints of each side, and then we're going to calculate the shape created when joining all the midpoints together. Okay, and we're going to set this up on the next page. So we'll come back to your homework in a minute or two, actually in a bit or two, because it's going to take some time to do some calculations. So if we flip over, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to have a separate sheet of paper anyway to start this. So at the top, ladies and gentlemen, I've written all the ordered pairs. So JKLN, okay? And then I want you to think from our lessons, what type of calculations do you want to perform to help classify the quadrilateral? Remember we did that warm-up of identifying all the different types of quadrilaterals, and you added some arrows or dashes on those lines. So hopefully you want to realize that what we're after here is doing some slopes and some lengths, right? So we need slopes and lengths for each side. Now, folks, if I was actually doing this in class, which would be an easier thing to do, I would break you into groups of 3 or 4, so then you only have to do one of these. But I need you to be prepared for your unit test that this could be a question that you need to do correctly, but in a quickness so that it doesn't take you the whole period to do. So what we need to do is get the slope of each of them, so I'll help set that up. So we need to get slope of JK. We need to get slope of KL. We need to get slope of LN. And we need slope of JN. If you're wondering, Miss R, why do we not have an M in there? I don't want to use the capital letter M because it's usually signified for midpoint. So quite often they would ignore the letter M. But it's possible to see it though as well. Okay. So let's do these slopes, folks. So JK, it's going to be 4 minus 6 divided by -5 minus 3. So that's going to equal 1/4. I'm sorry, if you want me to simplify it, it's going to be -2 over -8. I'll put that in for you if you want to see that. -2 over -8, which simplifies to 1/4. Okay, next one, KL is -5 minus 4 divided by -6 plus 5. Okay, that simplifies to -9 over -1. Okay, negative divided negative gives you a positive, so it's just going to be 9, which is 9 over 1, which is just 9. Okay, LN is going to be -3 plus 5 divided by 8 plus 6. So that's going to be 2 over 14, which equals 1 over 7. Okay. So you've got JN, -3 minus 6 over 8 minus 3. It's going to be -9 over 5. So let's take a look here, folks. Do we have any slopes that are the same? We don't. So we wouldn't say that we have any opposite sides or any parallel sides because none have the same slope. We could also check to see if we have negative reciprocals here. Do we have negative reciprocals here? Nope, so we can't make any conclusions yet. How about we do the lengths first, and then we will make a summary of all of them. Okay, so let's do, again, I'd break you into groups and say, JK, you do this one, and then KL, and then LN, and then JN. Okay, let's do this. All right, so for JK, we're going to start with negative 5 minus 3 squared plus 4 minus 6 squared. Okay, plug that in your calculator, folks. I hope you can do this quickly, and that's going to equal 8.2. Just double check it. Okay, KL, and by all means, pause the video if you need to. Okay, negative 6 plus 5 squared plus negative 5 minus 4 squared. Remember, folks, you've already done the work, so I'm just looking here. I'm not having to look way up at the ordered pairs, guys. I'm just looking from my slope. Okay, I'm just going to erase those dots. They don't look like they're negative signs. Okay, so plug that in your calculator, and you're going to get 9.1. ln, folks. So we're going to have 8 plus 6 squared plus negative 3 plus 5 squared. Plug it in your calculator, and you're going to get 14.1. Jn. Again, there's a lot of calculation work here, guys, but it's going to help us arrive at a conclusion. So negative 3 minus 6 squared. So we end up with, for Jn, 10.3. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's analyze our lengths. Do we have any that are equal? No. So if we have no parallel lines, we have no negative reciprocal slopes, we don't have any perpendiculars in the corners, we have no side lengths that are the same, what are we going to say? How would you classify this? Okay? And I would say that it is a since no sides are equal in length or have same slopes, therefore we're going to call it an irregular quadrilateral. Oopsie. Irregular All right, so we did question A. Awesome. Okay, if you have any questions with that, come see me in class, by the way. Okay, so question 2. Calculate the midpoints of each side. Okay, classify the shape created when joining the midpoints together. So we're going to break things up, and we're going to use some different letters to help us out. Okay, so instead of finding the midpoint of JK, because we're going to be finding midpoints of side lengths, we're just going to give them different letters because we're going to have to do some other work with them. So for B, we're going to go A equals the midpoint of JK. We'll just do it quickly. 3 minus 5 divided by 2. 6 plus 4 divided by 2. So that's going to equal, simplify it to negative 1 and 5. Okay. We'll let ordered pair B be the midpoint of KL. So plugging that in, negative 5 minus 6 divided by 2, and 4 minus 5 divided by 2. That simplifies to negative 5.5. We got fractions here, guys, and negative 0.5. All right, next, C. It's going to be the midpoint of LN. Keeping it in order, folks. So if you're doing this on your unit test, try to keep as much order as you can. Okay, so midpoint of LN, which is C, will be 1 and negative 4. Again, if I was doing this in class, folks, I'd be breaking this into groups. So, So our last midpoint is 5.5 and 1.5. All right, now that we've found the midpoints, we've got to go back to the question. And the question says, we found the midpoints of each side. Now it says classify the shape created by joining the midpoints together. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I chose to give different letters A, B, C, D. Okay, because now we have to do almost step A over again. Now we have to classify it. So we're going to do slope of AB. We're going to do slope of BC. We're going to do slope of CD. And we're going to do slope of AD. Okay, now this gets a little harder when we have decimals in here. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So negative 0.5, subtract 5, divided by negative 5.5, subtract a negative becomes plus 1. Okay, simplify this. You get negative 5.5 divided by negative 4.5. The negative divided by negative gives you a positive. So it's going to be 5.5 divided by 4.5. Now here's the problem. Remember, definition of a fraction or a rational expression cannot have decimals in it. So to get rid of the decimals, I notice it's 0.5, so I'm going to times it by 2 to eliminate the decimal. So your final answer here should be 11 over 9. Okay, try the next one. Negative 4 plus 0.5 when you subtract a negative. Okay, 1 plus, again, subtracting a negative. Simplify that through, negative 3.5 over 6.5. And you've got decimals, so double the numerator, double the denominator. So it's negative 7 over 13. Slope of CD equals 1.5 plus 4 divided by 5.5, subtract 1. Simplify, you're going to have 5.5 over 4.5. Again, you've got decimals, so you need to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2. And you're going to get 11 over 9. Last one. Okay, that simplifies to negative 3.5 over 6.5. And again, double it. You're going to have negative 7 over 13. Whew! Take a look at this, folks. What do we notice so far? Now we notice we've got some slopes that are equal. And we notice that since they're opposite each other, their opposite sides are equal. But we can't finish labeling it yet because we haven't figured out the other part, which is your lengths. Okay? We have to make sure they're equal in length to see how we can narrow it through. Do we also know here, folks, do we have any negative reciprocal slopes, i.e., do we have any 90 degrees? And the answer is no. So we know that it can't be a rectangle or a square, okay, because there's no 90 degrees. So let's check the lengths to help us out. So again, length of AB, stay with me, I know this is a little bit tedious, but this is what you have to do when you're a mathematician. I tell you, you got to do the work. Okay, so length of AB, plug her in your calculator, and I'm going to leave it as a square root. It's going to be square root of 50.5. You can leave it like that, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm not asking you to calculate the distance. We're just using that to make an interpretation. Okay? Here we go, BC. 1 plus 5.5 and square it, plus negative 4 plus 0.5 and square it. Simplify that in your calculator and you're going to get 54.5 under the square root. 2 more, guys, and then we can finish this off, okay? Okay. So what do we have here? 5.5 minus 1 squared plus 1.5 plus 4 squared equals root of 50.5. Okay, and AD equals 1.5, subtract 5 squared, plus 5.5, oh, it's minus 1, I'm sorry guys. I apologize, guys. Let me write that one out right. Back the truck up. So that would be 5.5 minus 1 squared plus 1.5 minus 5 squared. Square root's going to be 54.5. All right, any questions there, folks? Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to make some, taking a look at our lengths, let's analyze it. Notice that we have two opposite sides that are equal in length. So let's make some conclusions. Since slope AB equals slope CD, slope BC equals slope AD. What else do we know? AB equals CD, and we know BC equals AD. Therefore, what are we going to? What type of shape is this? Okay, there's some symmetry to it. We don't have negative reciprocal slopes, so therefore it's a parallelogram. This is a really cool mathematical thing. Regardless of what irregular shape you start with, or you could even start with a square, you could start with a parallelogram, doesn't matter what quadrilateral you start with. If you take the midpoints and join them, it will always be a parallelogram. We can further classify that this is not a rectangle because we don't have any negative reciprocal slopes here. All right, so we know it's a parallelogram. Okay, so we can say not a square or a rectangle because no negative reciprocal slopes. So I gotta move that up, guys. Awesome. Whew, we got through that, guys. So just be prepared to show me work, make sure you can analyze your answers, and come up with a classification based on it. So again, we took a lot of numbers. Look at all the work we did today, guys. We took 4 numbers, or 4 coordinates. We knew they were irregular. We then took the midpoints, and then we classified by joining the midpoints that it's a parallelogram. The cool thing about mathematics is it doesn't matter what four-sided enclosed shape you have. If you take the midpoints, you will always end up with a parallelogram. And remember, a square and a rectangle are a special type of parallelogram. All right, awesome stuff today, guys. Here's your homework. Page 104, numbers 2, 3, 10, and 12. Have a fabulous day.